Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Full Crew. I am Dawn Zoldai, one of your co-hosts.
Hi, and I'm Mike Peel, the other co host. We've got some great guests today. We're going to be talking about 5G going to space, hydrogen fuel cells being used for commercial air. We're going to be talking about the angry kitty, which Dawn is going to go into detail on, and also some, kind of repeating a little bit from last week, some insights into the chip shortage, chip manufacturing, and what that kind of means in terms of plans for the United States. While we have you, I want to remind you that if you're interested at any point and you want to hear from us again, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell and set it to all notifications on YouTube. Also, you could go to fullcrew.io and sign up for our newsletter and never miss an episode. All right, so we're going to introduce our guests. First up, we got Roee Kashi. Uh,
Hi.
you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm the co-founder and CTO of Elsight, and for I think that I can speak of a lot of entrepreneurs that we usually confuse doing the question, "Who am I?" and what we do. So I'll try to say that I am live in Tel Aviv, in Israel, happily married with a cat, not angry though, and what I do um, in Elsight that we basically develop and provide BVLOS connectivity for any kind of uncrewed robotics, either drones and ground. And it's all really cool because it's taking. Someone just told me that guys, you're transforming the industry. Like we're taking the line of sight kind of method and take it to the not just the immediate translation of flying something beyond visual line of sight, the pilot, but how we make it an actual economically viable operation at scale, secured, highly available. So this amazing challenge and it's super interesting here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Personally, I went from not knowing your company in a year to going to AUVSI, and literally all my friends are using you now. So that's that's quite the change from my perspective. And we also have Danielle McLean. So Danielle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Danielle. I'm the founder and CEO of HYSKY Society. We're a 501c3 bringing hydrogen aviation to the US effectively and trying to achieve utilization as quickly as possible. I'm an engineer, entrepreneur, and hydrogen aviation thought leader. Very passionate about eVTOL, H2 eVTOL, which means hydrogen electric vertical takeoff and landing, but not just vertical takeoff and landing, just decarbonizing all of aviation. And really making aviation a sustainable industry for the future. The carbon is only one little piece of it. The workforce is a much bigger piece of it, and studying that and what the future looks like really got me to look at diversity and our demands for the workforce for these new technologies and how many people they will require, and it's going to require us to kind of think differently. So yeah, I had a see my first company. We did some record flight hydrogen powered drones. Turns out doing a hydrogen powertrain and airframe as a first time founder was quite the undertaking. One of our biggest challenges was getting hydrogen. And so we started looking at, where are the gaps that need to be filled. And that led us to starting HYSKY, really building that community. I'm the hydrogen and diversity and workforce advisor for Vertical Flight Society, or was. It's kind of closing now and moving into all in with HYSKY.
Awesome.
All
So
right. I was gonna say we're gonna go to our first article, and I'm the lucky one that gets to kind of transition us into this. And by the way, as Roe mentioned, he's coming to us live from Tel Aviv, Israel. He's actually not in space, even though he looks like he's in space. And but his background is really relevant to the article that he picked. And I love this article, Roee, because when you think about connectivity, you think about how these drones and other vehicles are going to operate long term and long distances. It's all about having that connection. And here we have Ericsson, Qualcomm, and Thales taking 5G into space. So tell us about this article, Roee, why you picked it and why you think it's so important.
All right. So first of all, it's amazing to see that it's not only Ericsson, Qualcomm, and Thales. We see different groups that are aiming to this kind of initiative of, and it sounds a little bit science fiction, right? I mean, to have a cellular communication like LTE or 5G directly with a satellite. I mean, we got used to like huge terminals that cost tens of thousands of dollars and with high data rates, and we still don't know for sure how it's going to work. But the first milestone was with 3GPP that added in release 17 and 18 the support for non-terrestrial networks and to support this infrastructure of using satellites. And we see different groups. We see this one with Ericsson, Qualcomm, and Thales. And you see exactly this combination. Thales is a well-known defense integrator. By the way, a week ago, they Telit, which is a cellular manufacturer, acquired Thales cellular modules division and with LTE and 5G. So it will be interesting to see if and when Telit is going to be part of it. And Qualcomm, of course, it's the by far the top in the world in terms of 5G communications. And Ericsson as the actual infrastructure, the actual I would say facilitator of 5G equipment on the edge. And you can see a different group of AST Space Mobile together with Nokia, for example. And you can see also another company that has different solutions around this area. I won't mention all of them, but the whole idea and what's really ignite and spark the imagination here is that you can use the same mobile phone that you have now that connects to AT&T, for example, in 5G, and it will roam like you'll have a roaming to a satellite. So this is how crazy it's going to be. Now, in different companies, they provide slightly different solution for different use cases. For example, I had last week or 2 weeks ago a conversation with Dr. Wei Wan Yao. Is the CTO of AST Space Mobile, and he talked about that. I think it should be around 2 weeks from now that they're going to launch the first test satellite to actually prove the concept. Vodafone, for example, is part of their partner, and if I understood correctly, part of the investor as well. And together with Nokia, it's going to be. I'm really looking forward to this test, and hopefully we're going to. As also said, we're going to be able to test it. And the idea that, of course, that when we're talking about LEO-based satellites, right, and low Earth orbit satellite, then there's a trade-off because the latency is very low, right, relatively low. I mean, we're talking about latency. It is the how much time it takes for a packet to arrive to the satellite and go back to Earth. It's in the speed of light, but the speed of light is not that fast when we're talking about geostationary satellites. But the idea here is that the more the orbit is lower, the more the latency is lower, then the constellation needs to be higher. You need to have more and more satellites. So just for example, according to what the CTO AST Space Mobile said, they're going to reach a continuous operation with full constellation only in end of 2024, right? So it's relatively when I think of 2024, I think it's going to be right now. In terms of this kind of processes, it's amazing. And think of what it allows us to do. Um, any kind of gas and oil projects or in environmental inspections, any kind of solutions in Africa, for example, that the 3G LTE, I'm not talking about 5G, the terrestrial communication is so frustrating. Or also places when we're talking about in the USA. I mean, we just need to see, for example, FAA discussion with the industry on the network remote ID. The idea here is, well, we cannot really force companies to use network remote ID because it's very hard to get connectivity any place, even if we're talking about the USA. So a lot of companies need to find and struggle all kinds of, I would say, workarounds and mitigations to all kinds of stuff. But the more thing is going to be so easy, you don't need to have a new terminal, but use the same LTE or 5G equipment you already have on the drone, or same thing on the robotic, or same thing for your mobile phone. When we're starting to have different use cases for first responders, for search and rescue, the whole idea is that there's someone with a phone, but he cannot get any service because of something, it's a disaster recovery or things like that. But once we putting this kind of technology enablement here and allows anyone with a decent mobile phone to connect directly with anyone in the world, it's quite revolutionary, as I say.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, everybody, what Roee is talking about here, this is kind of a new development where the 3GPP, which is the Global Telecommunications Standards body, just recently approved or supported this idea of non-terrestrial networks for the first time. And Roee, to your point, in the U.S. and I know every country has an equivalent. We have the Federal Communications Commission, and they actually just put out in the Federal Register a whole host of rulemaking that's going to be occurring over the next year. It's a consolidated list, so much on that list. But I guess my question to you, Roee, is as I was reading this, it's kind of like what goes up must come down, what goes down must go somewhere. You know, is this really going to go directly to people's phones, or is there going to have to be some kind of mobile terrestrial satellite station that is going to be essentially receiving these signals and then secondarily distributing them right to the folks on that network? I assume that is the case.
So when I first read it, then what I understood that is directly from the phone to the satellite, and then I was skeptical. That, well, I don't get how it's supposed to work through FCC, how it's supposed to work through different bands, different carriers. How is it competing with the carriers? How exactly it works? Is the technology is ready? This is why I had to do this meeting with the CTO from AST Space Mobile to understand how it actually works. So first of all, yes, it works directly from the mobile phone to the satellite.
So nothing in between, no other infrastructure needed.
No cell towers, nothing.
No
That's
cell towers. So he talked
interesting.
about two different use cases. One is when it works in a region that the region itself has supposed to have a mobile network. For example, you're in the USA, but you don't have any signal. Okay.
Yeah.
You have carriers there. For example, AT&T. So
Yeah.
if you have a phone with AT&T, then you either get a message or something like they can activate the roaming plan, and then it will work directly with a satellite. You still bill from AT&T, but they have their rev share with AT&T directly. So you don't need to subscribe a different kind of service or have two different SIM cards. It's with your same mobile, with the same SIM card. When you're going to, for example, in the middle of the ocean, and Daniel, I don't know what's your plans, but if you're going to find yourself in the middle of the ocean, then you're able to work, and this is the plan, you're able to work directly with their service. So again, no mobile networks, nothing in between, and still, this is the plan how it works. Well,
Wow. I mean,
It
that's
feels
you're
I want to see it works, but
yeah.
even if it works for telemetry, think about agriculture, think about any kind of IoT devices you can have any place and just communicate directly without to trouble the whole idea with the different satellite terminals. That will be amazing.
So
That
I
would
have
be
so many
amazing.
questions.
Yeah, I was going to ask Danielle actually your thoughts because what we see at the end of last year, beginning of this year, a whole big kerfuffle of 5G starting to come online in the U.S. and then interference with avionics. And I'm thinking to myself as I read this, and by the way, then there still is Legato networks and the uprising about that and how using low Earth LEO satellites down to these mobile terrestrial satellite stations will interfere with GPS, or that is the claim with DoD and virtually every federal agency in the United States. That seems to be pressing on. It's just like that seems to be kind of significant. Like I can't imagine from a satellite right to your phone. What I mean, what are your thoughts on the interference potential here?
Yeah, well, and this is so interesting because comms is a topic that I have always struggled to understand fully and always wanted to know more about. And so, Roe, sorry, you said a couple of things that I want to, for the beginners out here, I want to ask, okay, number one, you said the less latency you have, the more satellites you need. Is that just because you're sending less data per each one?
So how satellite communication works, right? You need to transmit data from the Earth to the satellite, and then it
Mm-hmm.
needs to go back. But you only see if I mean, uh, because you want to have lower power consumption, then you need to have a
Okay.
very focused line. And if you have this kind of focus angle, then it means that you need to have a lot of satellites in the sky in order to be able to get their signal. Now, when we're talking about this kind of satellites, then let's just understand just an example for AST Science, AST Space Mobile. What they're saying that the satellite is expected to be in the 700 kilometers altitude. It's really low, right? That's
Mm.
when we're talking about the again, even when we're talking about the speed of light, we're talking about something that is very low. We're talking about the most higher satellites. It's 35,000 kilometers. So this is 700 is considered low. And when we're talking about how it actually works, then they really specify how many the speed of the full orbit. So let me see if I can even find it. Yeah. So what they're saying is that the the satellite is expected to circle the Earth every 90 minutes,
Mm.
right? Every 90 minutes to circle the Earth. So we're talking about expected speed of 25,000 kilometers per hour, 17,000 miles per hour. So the idea here is that you will have a certain satellite, but in order to connect with it, you must ensure that you have it right on top of you, or at
And
least a decent angle.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you're
So
going to have, so because you have a whole bunch of them, you have almost like a sequential,
Like a
like a whole
lateral
bunch of them
pass.
hitting the same spot
exactly,
over and over as it goes around. I'm being very
exactly.
basic
Cool.
here and non-sciency, but
No,
and Danielle,
that's
I
good.
wanted,
The more,
I love
the
all your
more
questions, and we
yeah,
could stay on this like the entire
altitude
time.
is higher, the more the
Yeah.
altitude is higher,
Yep.
then it is easier to see the satellites
Cover
because
a
the
Yeah.
broader
angle.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But because it's higher, then it takes more time for the light to arrive to the satellite and go back to Earth. And like I said, speed of light is not that fast, so it takes sometimes half a second or a second, sometimes even more. So this is why there's this balance in between.
And this announcement is really about some testing. There's some other things coming actually online and more to follow with all of those. Check out my articles for Inside GNSS about the legato issue, and you can kind of get a better understanding of some of the issues and also, the 5G interference with avionics. But would love to transition a little, over to Danielle because you picked a really cool article on hydrogen And go ahead, Mike. You take it from here.
Well, it's really Danielle's article, but I think this is a supremely interesting technology. I've been hearing a lot of my friends, like Mike Blades, was talking about how hydrogen has finally found its day. Tell us a little bit why it's hydrogen's time in the sun, and there's also a deeper side to this article that I think you want to bring up too.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So yeah, it's, for decades, we've been saying hydrogen is the future, and when is it ever going to happen? There are significant challenges, mainly, well, I would say number one, public perception. Most people, when you bring up hydrogen in the sky, they immediately go to the Hindenburg, and that was a long time ago. And we use hydrogen all the time very safely on the ground and in aviation. So um, we actually have a T-shirt that says hydrogen, it won't shoot your eye out. And I encourage you to buy that T-shirt. I ordered one. I'll have it soon. But it's been shown to be as safe, in some areas safer, than traditional fuels. So that's, we need to fix the public perception, because it's, that kind of happened because that was like right around the time that home videos were a thing, and it was, I think, one of the first like disasters caught on camera. And so it just really, put that idea in our mind about hydrogen. But then, so secondly, we've had tons of advancements in technology with fuel cells, electrolyzers, and hydrogen storage. And for those of you that I'll just give a quick little, breakdown of how hydrogen works. There are two ways that you can use, well, there are many, but two that mainly you can use for aviation. You can either do hydrogen combustion, where you're just burning the hydrogen, which is pretty efficient and has extremely high energy density, but it does have some NOx emissions, which can be worse than CO2. And then what's really exciting is hydrogen fuel cells. So again, you have hydrogen combustion, that's its own technology, or hydrogen fuel cells. And the easiest way to think about a hydrogen fuel cell is it works almost like a battery. If you think about, when you're charging a battery, think about when you charge your phone. You plug it into the wall and you're actually getting electrons from the wall. The way that a hydrogen fuel cell charges is it's like a battery, but instead of plugging it into electricity, you're going to feed it with hydrogen, and then you actually produce the electricity inside of the fuel cell. So where a battery is sort of storing the electricity, the hydrogen fuel cell is creating it through a reaction that happens. But just think about it as a battery to, keep it simple. So when you're using hydrogen fuel cells, you have no emissions. It's electric. You can make hydrogen from water with renewable energy. So when you think about that compared to like batteries, lithium is not an infinite resource, and it's not a sustainable process. It's pretty bad. If you look up how to make lithium, and some of the sometimes we have these weights. Some of the Teslas were slow coming out because they couldn't get to the lithium and make their batteries. So you have water, that's abundant. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. You can make it with renewable energy. You can put it in a fuel cell, and you can supply power to cars. And there are a couple hydrogen fuel cell cars that are already on the market. I'm happy to answer any questions. But then the second piece that I wanted to talk about was, I'll pause there, and because I just said a lot. I'll pause there, and then we'll get into the next part.
I know Mike's going to take this, but I got to say, I waited 2 years for my Tesla, so I know what you're talking about, Danielle. And I know Mike's going to maybe hone in on this company that's creating this stuff, and maybe the leader of it too.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't remember the company. Was it Hydroplane?
It's Hydroplane.
Yeah, it's Hydroplane.
Yeah.
And it's Anita Sengupta, Dr.
Yes.
Sengupta. Yeah.
But what I think is just to even just kind of jump on something Danielle was saying, Like, you could see the pictures of the lithium fields. They're so toxic that if a bird lands on it, it's instantaneously dead. The fumes could actually take a
Yeah,
bird out. So,
it's nasty
Yikes.
stuff.
yeah, it's pretty terrible for the environment. I guess the trade-off there is the hope that you're able to store more energy than you're expending or wasting during the production. Um, and I don't know, I've never seen those numbers, but in comparison, what we know about hydrogen used at the scale it's used today, I mean, the output is water, right? For this
Yeah.
battery-like technology. Thank you for explaining that, by the way. I didn't know, like, I just assumed it was exactly like a battery, except that the conductive material was some type of hydrogen mix or something. But knowing that it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually
no, you
the
bet. I
offset, that's kind of really interesting. Did you want to
y-
dive into the founder, though? Because that's
yes, for
also an
sure.
interesting story.
And so, and another piece. Okay, so I'm a futurist. I'm always looking at the future, and I'm wrapping up a workforce study that I did with that HYSKY did with the Vertical Flight Society. They're a nonprofit, large aerospace nonprofit, about 6,000 members, and something that we've been seeing is just a high demand and a lack of available people that understand this. We've got some of these experts that are either retiring or kind of moving around to different companies, and we're not attracting people to this space. And so in this paper, which will be published soon, I dive into the and here's I'm going to make a bold statement, and I can back it up. The biggest threat to the aerospace and defense industry is diversity, um, because we are losing talent at extremely high rates. So legacy aviation companies are they've got attrition rates for women and underrepresented groups that are double the rest of the national average. And then you take startup aviation startups, including drones and eVTOL and all of these other things, they're double already that really bad number. And this costs companies hundreds of millions of dollars. And what happens is, and it's going to come back to Dr. Sengupta, what happens is, we when a lot of companies are formed, it's typically men who have known each other and have working relationships, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But let's say, 4 or 5 guys get together, they form a startup, they've got these really good relationships, they get funding, they start growing, and before you know it, they've got 20 guys that work there, and now they're like, okay, we got to get some women in here. And then they bring in a woman, and she's the only woman. Well, they didn't know that one of their friends was a little bit toxic, right? So then that woman ends up having a not so great experience, and it's so much easier for those 20 guys to be like, no, they would never do that, than to actually believe that woman. And so I say all of that to say, to really save our industry, diversity has to start on the board with the founders. And so if you don't take the time to really have diversity at your board, you won't have a company. And so
Yeah.
the reason I picked Dr. Sengupta and Hydroplane is because she did exactly that. And there are other companies that are working on hydrogen, but if you look at her team, who she's got on her board, or her founders, I'm just blown away. And sure enough, they're moving fast. They're moving faster than some of the other companies. And I talk to a lot of these guys, and they say, well, there's just not any aerospace engineers that want to work that are women or that are people of color. Interesting, because we don't have time to talk to them all. There's so many. So they're out there. They just are being a little bit more selective. It's not like it used to be back in the day where you could put a picture on a website and people go there. Now we're looking at the board, we're looking at Glassdoor, we're looking on TikTok, we're looking on Twitter, and we're seeing not only what do your current employees say, but who left your company, why did they leave, and what does your board look like. And if you can't put people in leadership, then you can't guarantee a safe space for me. And that's kind of the attitude of the future workforce. And so Anita's got the technology. Sorry, Dr. Sengupta. Anita is my friend, so I'll slip and call her that. But Dr. Sengupta, she's got that. She's got the technology. She's decarbonizing aviation. She hit all of the things for her to literally dominate this space in, a decade or two.
And what
So
was her
I'm just really excited about that.
previous experience? Because I think that's important too to the story. Where was she
Sorry,
prior?
what
NASA.
was it?
Can,
What?
she
what
was with NASA.
Yeah,
Uh,
she worked on the Mars rover. She worked on oh, what was it? I think it was the Hyperloop thing. Don't
yes,
quote
she
Yep.
me on
did.
that.
She
Okay,
worked
thank
with the
you.
hyper. I mean, this
Uh-huh.
woman is a rock star. By the way, if you're not going to Move America, it's a conference on advanced mobility, multimodal systems at the end of September in Austin, Texas, 28, 29 September. I will be there. And Dr. Sangupta is one of the speakers, and that group just put out a great paper called the Disruptors, and it highlights a number of women, including Sharon Rossmark, CEO of Women in Drones, who is actually moderating the panel I'm on, and Dr. Sam Gupta is also highlighted. So I was really honored to be in that same paper with these women. But Roee, I'd love to get your thoughts. I mean, we just kind of talked about a lot of different things, hydrogen in general, this idea of diversity in a workforce. Love to hear your thoughts on kind of where any or all of this is going.
Wow, I have a lot to say actually. First of all, I fully agree with you, Danielle, but I would even say more than that. When there's let's start with I would say another overview. Usually, I'm very cynical about PC in language, all kinds of stuff. But I remember the day that I saw that people stopped using unmanned and stopped calling it uncrewed.
Yep.
And at first I said, well, is it really necessary? And I immediately went into, wow, it's amazing. This is the exact thing we need to do because it's these small things, but not just the small things, but in the right time. And Daniel, you talked about guys that bring guys. It's not guys bringing guys. It's humans that know how to
Yes.
recruit humans that are alike them.
Yep.
The more similar they look to me, then it's easier for me to understand them. And what we see is that it's the drones industry in this understanding in the new aviation, I would say, it brings something new because it's the diversity is not starting now. I mean, it started actually quite recently, but when we started about being proactively understanding and being aware of diversity, it's a little bit too late, right? I mean, it is when companies that were founded already, huge enterprise, they're already built in the new age. And what that management only knows to recruit the same templates, the same
No,
kind
you're
of
exactly right. It is too late. In fact, to go back to something that we were talking about before we went live, um, diversity is a hard sell. This is the
Yeah.
reason that we created HYSKY Society. We're bringing hydrogen aviation to the US. But you know what our number one thing is? Our first goal is we're creating the community. We're not, and this is why I'm highlighting Anita, because gone are the days of I've spent plenty of years trying to educate leaders, but I don't know if you've heard the innovators or the inventors dilemma or the innovators dilemma, if you've ever
Innovator.
read
Yeah.
that.
It's a
I,
great
I
book.
always forget if it's innovator or inventor, but this is what is happening. People have something that if you have something, if you're a founder and you have something that gets you funding, why would you change that? You're making money. You're not going to change that, and that's what we realized. So, like, all right, we don't need to try to change them. That's fine. They can do that. We'll create our own community. We'll boost the companies that we know will be here in the future. We'll create the community that serves them, and we'll bring them the best talent, right? And so that's what we want to do. Where these other companies are like, well, we can't find women, we can't find people of color. Cool, do your thing. Do that. We're not even mad at you. Do your thing. And then we say, well, then they're just going to come in and copy us after they see we're successful. Good. We want them to,
Yeah.
so for the
Yeah.
first time, we want them to copy us.
And I don't
Um,
want to be argumentative here, but and maybe I'm being Pollyannish, but I don't think it's ever too late to change. I don't think it's ever too late to change culture. to try something new. And to Roe's point, and Roe, I love that you said that. Like, hey, I was skeptical at first. I hear these PC terms, but then I did the research. There is absolutely scientific data that stands behind the proposition that diverse organizations are more innovative and more successful, and frankly, more profitable companies. And so, it is frustrating, Danielle. I agree with you insofar as diversity doesn't sell. People don't want to hear about it. As you know, Danielle, I worked with Sharon Rossmark and Marlene Dials from Diversity Development Network of Canada to put out that UASAAM industry survey on diversity last year. Over 1,000 responses, which was awesome. We were super encouraged. And then we put out this report, and we debated amongst ourselves, like, do we sell it? Because when you look around, there's all these market reports out there, and they're very, very, very expensive. So we decided, no one paid us for this. We had no sponsor. We put so much time and effort. We put a price tag on it, and frankly, like, we had a lot of looks, let's put it that way, because we could track how many people looked at the website. But I can tell you we didn't have a lot of sales, and why is that? Like, okay, so you're interested to know about it, but you don't want to pay a couple bucks, right, to the 3 women that put this thing together and basically worked 9 months to do that, and you want the data. So, it's really kind of an interesting proposition, but we could talk about this stuff all day long. Mike, I know you've got a chip article. I feel like that's your next article, and it relates directly to something Danielle said about lithium batteries and how toxic and horrible they are, but also how difficult it is to, right? How there's a corner on this market in Taiwan and some of, so Mike, go ahead and tell us about your article. We have an interstitial script, I think.
No script today, but we do want to remind people about our sponsors. I just want to kind of end cap what we were talking about, though, a little bit here. I think one of the things that people underestimate the value of, even when you're talking about bringing diverse people to work with you, is diversity of thought that it brings. So
that's the point.
Different people from different backgrounds.
Gender.
Yeah, they attack the same problem with different mindset solutions, different pain points, right? So it only opens you up to broader markets on the most simple, cynical level. And then on the on the other side, like, why not? This is something that if you invest in early, you get the benefit of, and it becomes multiplicative in terms of how it benefits your organization. Because what you're talking about, Danielle, all right, if you reach growth past 25, you're going to have to be thinking, even from a regulatory standpoint, about the diversity of your organization, right? And for you to have to eliminate toxic players that are in your organization now that are considered valuable, you're hurting yourself, because it's a bigger wound to cut that person out now that this toxic personality has been part of the business process development for so long. So start early, and then even that person has a chance to grow out of their inexperience. So you could save that person's career also.
Right. And so, Dawn, I agree that it's never too late for an individual to change. It's for some of these companies, just like you just said, it's so difficult to, when you have somebody that's the expert, and they've been, I was just, in the report we talk about, like, to replace somebody that is an expert in their field, it's 400%, or I think 400K just to replace them, plus their salary. I don't remember the exact number, I don't have it in front of me, but it's like a huge number. Yeah. So imagine if you have to get rid of a couple of those people, that's all of their knowledge, and so it could take down the company.
Yeah, loss of time.
The ability of understanding and being part of the industries at growth, and at this point, bring all the building blocks for education to show different people how this industry works, and to do this training and to bring them to these positions. This is the unique position and the right timing to do.
So this is one of the best conversations about get one more point in, and then we got to go to a commercial break.
Okay, last point. All of the sort of ideals that we have around diversity, like, oh, it's PC, or oh, they're being sensitive, snowflake, this and that, all of that is from the media. If we listen to each other, we all want the same thing. And the most diverse groups are the funnest groups to work in. And then don't forget to come to CES because we're having an award ceremony in January. So if you're going to be at CES, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned on what we have coming for that.
Yes, stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more articles. We're just going to quickly thank our sponsors, ISR Ideas, Vodix, Drone Code Foundation, and Dragonfly. We thank you for their support, and we also want to thank our guests again for coming on today and sharing these great articles with us. And taking strong stands on things. So that's always, I mean, this was one of the best conversations I've had about diversity in public, let alone in private. Also, just want to remind people again, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell if you like what you're hearing. Next up, we're going to be kind of bringing back a topic from last week to discuss a little bit more in depth, and it does tie into what we're talking about here also. So Taiwan dominates the world supply of computer chips. No wonder why the U.S. is worried. So you might have heard a lot of kerfuffle about Nancy Pelosi traveling last week. People were on both sides of the issue in the most vehement and venomous ways that I've seen in a long time. And what I found so interesting about it is very few people were even describing or talking about why she was going. You know, like it was just a personal vacation or something that Nancy Pelosi was showing up in
or
time.
just like almost like let me purposely piss off China, you know,
Yeah.
like
there was no reason for it, which I thought was weird that the administration took the stance like she's her own person. Like, well, I mean, whatever, she went and she's part of your party, and it seems like, according to this article, it was for a very, very specific purpose that ties into the chips bill. So TSMC, which Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, so you could understand it's in the name there, they're from Taiwan. They're actually responsible for almost 50% of semiconductor production, or no, 53% of semiconductor production across the planet. And then another 10% is also localized in Taiwan. Then you add Samsung on top of that, and you're basically getting to the majority of the chip market. So we think about Intel here in the United States. They do a great job marketing, but their smallest chip is 7 nanometers, and in this case, smaller chips are better. So the most technologically advanced chips, the ones that are going to be used in 5G chips that we find in our phones and other communication devices, are 5 nanometers. And it's TSMC and it's basically Samsung that are producing them. So clearly that travel was very important, because we've already made some investment in bringing TSMC stateside. We're basically going to be subsidizing this company, and that's a big kind of shift in terms of the way that the United States government treats markets, how they get involved in markets, which things they subsidize. You're not going to see a much larger investment than this, I would think. And it seems like it's very important for, not only just from defense, but do you want to be carrying around an iPhone that's 12 years old? Because that might be the case if we lost our access to this company. So
yeah, Mike, I wanted to jump on just two quick fun facts here. So number one, the TSMC actually bought, with the support of the Biden administration, bought a site in Arizona to build a U.S. foundry, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's supposed to be completed in 2024. Combine that with what Mike just alluded to and what we talked about last week on the crew. Congress just passed that CHIPS and Science Act. It's $52 billion in subsidies to support semiconductor manufacturing in the United States. Here's the key. Those companies will only receive the funding if they agree not to manufacture advanced semiconductors for Chinese companies. So Pelosi's trip, in large part, was to go out there to convince them, make sure you come in Arizona. Oh, by the way, we have money, but here's the rub, right? Like, you can't be making them for Chinese companies. And so we don't really know how that visit went, but you know, when you think about the purpose of that visit and how very significant it is and how it's tied not just to geopolitical or just political BS, let's call it, it's really tied to, you know, economic security of this country and other countries globally. It's a really big deal. So I'm going to go, let's maybe go to Danielle first. What are your thoughts here? Oh,
Oh,
you're
we
muted, my friend.
lost your mic.
All right, while she's figuring that out, we're going to go to Roee.
Yeah, so we see it every place, right? I mean, we see it with I don't know who recently tried to order like a NVIDIA GPU, and they're manufactured by TSMC, and the lead times are crazy. And it's not just this. When talking about cellular modules, like we talked about 5G that requires this kind of technology, again, the lead times are crazy. When you start to see the impact of it, then I can tell you in Elsight, for example, because what we do is we manufacture the Halo devices, which is the connectivity with LTE and 5G on drones, for example. We had to prepare with equipment months ahead. So we always have stock to according to the pipeline that we expect, and it's always need to talk with our partners and to understand what are their growth rates and to do these predictions. And if we miss the prediction, then the lead time would be 14 weeks, something like this. So it's for now. I mean, it kind of, I would say, it's kind of one of our advantages because other equipment lead times is 2-digit week lead times and ours in a few days. But companies that didn't do this kind of preparation advance, it stuck their business. It stuck the growth, and when business stuck, the whole economy is it's a pending stage because they're not able to order more units. And what we see is more collaborations between different manufacturers, like companies that used to see themselves as competitors are starting to manufacture for one another. So I believe it's going to create some kind of like COVID that created a certain I would say new situation, and everything kind of got used to it and even loved this kind of new situation, working from home. Maybe this kind of process will create another phase in industry of more collaborations in terms of more collaborations and flexibility in terms of building and manufacturing flexibilities, I would say.
All right, Danielle, it looks like she's got her mic unmuted. And now it's muted again. Oh my god. Oh, there you go. You're good. You're good.
Are you? No?
I don't know. It looks like you're unmuted, but hit your
My
volume button and see if that helps.
Have you tried? Yep. We got
now.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
you're good. Okay.
Okay, cool. I don't know what happened. I totally lost my train of thought, but
So we were talking about Pelosi's visit, Taiwan, semiconductors, this TMSC company, and the fact that, Taiwan's making 53% of all our chips, and her visit wasn't just, to tick China off. It was no kidding, like, let's have some economic security here. They're building a site in Arizona.
Okay, got it. So I didn't, sorry, Rowie, I did not catch what you were saying at all. I was over here messing with audio settings, so it was in and out. So my first thought was, what's to stop China from just saying, well, we'll give you more funding to not do that?
Yeah, well, true.
Yeah. The economics of this are they have the leverage, right? Because we would have to pay so much more for the manufacturing. So one of the things that I brought up last week was there was only 500 million appropriated in the bill for international partners. Chad seemed to think that was like a specific nod to Samsung, so that actually wouldn't touch. If that's the case, that wouldn't touch any of this negotiation. I was surprised that it was so low and it was so focused completely on domestic rather than on establishing new supply chains for this technology. Oh,
well, here's the key.
I'm a hot mess over here.
You are, my friend. But Mike, back to your point, it's manufacturing in the U.S. and what you just heard was TMSC is building maybe a plant in Arizona. So we got Roee and his buddies and his colleagues in Israel that might have folks that can do this work. They set up a plant somewhere in the U.S. That's called manufacturing the U.S. They're going to qualify, I believe, for this funding. So I understand like it's like 500,000 allocated for foreign companies, but but that would be like maybe Austria or someone in Tel Aviv, right? But if they open up something in the U.S., I think the sky's more the limit. So
Yeah, well, sky's the
I
limit on
think
the
that,
funding, but what I'm talking about is the economics of that. Is that
yeah,
you're now paying more to produce the same thing rather than just establishing it with that partner in Israel. Uh, and you could do both, right? You could say, if you do this and establish manufacturing in the United States, we will also allow X amount of funds. And I think this is just the first foray. I think there was a need to specifically focus on the U.S. There's probably also it's easier to get it passed when you talk to each of the senators and Congress people that are involved. But long term, my position, it's just an opinion of somebody who doesn't work directly in the field, that they're gonna have to open up at some point to actually make this whole system more resilient, just for international trade purposes, um, and U.S. national defense purposes also.
Yeah, I think
absolutely,
it's also a
absolutely.
lesson to a lot of manufacturers that maybe looked at what Tesla did, and it was amazing to see Elon Musk approach in terms of, well, there's a chipset crisis. Everyone is in this crisis, but I'm going to be flexible enough to be able to change the current design. Instead of relying on a certain chip, we're going to use another chip and do this modification ASAP and able to produce more cars. So it's amazing kind of shift that usually you will consider a certain chip that you integrated and designed. Well, I'm not going to change it anymore. But being this flexible in mindset and saying that I'm going to do stuff in order to actually to find solutions and not just remain passive here. So these are what I think the kind of things that we're going to they're going to last. That they're going to be part of the events and responses kind of I would say drills, in any kind of big company.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. I mean, proactivity here, look, when you see a problem, you're just going to sit back and wait. Things, hope is not a solution, is what I always used to say in the military, right? Hope is not a plan. So what is the plan? And it looks like we've got some things underway. So good stuff, Mike. Thanks for bringing this one up.
Yeah, and we've kept everybody waiting with this awesome teaser. So, Dawn, do you want to tell us what the angry kitty is?
Drum roll, please. So the angry kitty, and I wore kind of like my leopard shirt, to go along with the theme and all that. So what this thing is, it's actually a combat pod, and it was created about 10 years ago by Georgia Tech's Research Institute. And when you think about Top Gun Maverick, and you think about kind of the training up in the sky, right, the air-to-air combat. This thing was going on the aggressor aircraft, which is, let's just call them the red aircraft versus the blue or friendly aircraft. And the whole point of it was to jam signals on the blue aircraft and see how the blues would, right, respond. Well, it works so dang good because it uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, or what they're calling the cognitive electronic warfare, or cognitive EW approach, that Air Combat Command, where I used to work as their head of operations law, they decided, hey, you know what? We'd like to put these on our blue aircraft, if you will, our fighter jets, to jam the bad guys. And so that was kind of the latest development on this Angry Kittens, and the name just, it's eye catching. It absolutely cracks me up. When you think about these other names of, there's like the frighten the enemy, right? Like the Reaper, the Predator, and now we've got the Angry Kitten. So really cool stuff though. And I'll tell you, electronic warfare, man, if you're not watching Russia, what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, I mean, EW is everybody's talking about drones, but EW is the name of the game, because that's what's going to jam those drones and knock them out of the sky. Roee, what do you think?
Wow. um, so in defense expos, and maybe you heard this terminology, IOB, the Internet of Battlefield. When we're seeing the new battlefield, it's connected battlefield. We're talking about, of course, GPS, and we're talking about all kinds of positioning solutions, and we're talking about different radios and radars, and everything is radio, right? And you need to communicate with people, you need to transmit video backwards, you need to control different vehicles. Everything is about comms, how you
Yep.
create these comms, and from the other side, how you jam these comms. And you reference to Ukraine and Russia, and one of the references that we saw is that there was an article on the uh, how the Ukrainians were able to uh, choose the targets and understand exactly who to target exactly the commanders, because once the regular radio system, the encrypted radio system is jammed, they have to communicate somehow. So they use cellular phones. And once
Oh,
you're able to intercept cellular phones and you're able to
Triangulate.
understand who's talking with whom, so you're just able to target exactly the relevant stance. So the other side needs to choose: am I not communicating at all, or am I communicating with an unsafe line? So unsecured line. So it's a lose-lose situation. And I can tell you that from Elsa's perspective, we see it from the other side. I mean, what we do is the exact opposite. We having a brain that has connections to any kind of available band, carrier, technology, topology, any kind of spectrum,
satellites. We started
satellites.
with that article.
Yeah, actually, that's there's a nice video that one of our partners did that just took it to a jungle in Singapore, connected it with different satellite modems with LTE around, and we're just able to use all the different spectrum around, different satellite communications, different LTE, 3G, with all the carriers, just to create any kind of communication. And you see that from one side wants to see how they jam with intelligently. I mean, you cannot jam everything, so you need to understand how to do it, what's currently working, how you don't jam yourself, how do you open, how you still allow your the blue forces to communicate. So it's all super interesting, super complicated, and I like to meet this kitten.
Yeah, Danielle, you're a music aficionado. As I'm listening to Roee, I'm thinking Space Jam, right? Everybody, I see Scott Spacey behind. We're
Oh,
talking about jamming. Everybody, get up! It's time to jam now.
that was my daughter's favorite movie. Can y'all hear me now? Again, you can hear
We
me and see
can, we
me.
can. We
Fuck.
have
I
like
know.
literally a minute left, so I want to give you the last minute, Danielle, since you were kind of in and out, and your thoughts on this EW, the Angry Kitty Pod.
It's all of these names always cracked me up. It definitely got my attention. But just to kind of, tag on to what Roe said, it all the future warfare is information. And the more centralized that information is, I think the riskier it is, right? And so, the more we can kind of build these networks, I think it is really going to help. But yeah, I'll shut up there and I'm excited for the White House stuff if that's still coming up.
Yeah, we might have like 30 seconds to talk about that, Mike. If you don't mind bipping that up, that's also a technical term, bipping that up. So this past week, the White House held a summit on advanced air mobility, but also UAS. It was a one-day event, lots of incredible speakers. Honestly, I wanted to talk about this more fully today, but I wasn't able to dial in because I was at the Future of Aviation excellent event out in San Francisco with UC Berkeley and Caltrans co-sponsoring that. And I have not found any videos or any other information. I know Miriam McNabb did a really brief article about the counter UAS part of this agenda that we had talked about, I think, last week or the week before on this crew. So nothing really new there, but hopefully this information will be out soon because I've been pinging everybody. I actually emailed the White House press office and said, where's the videos? Where's the transcript? Like,
Yeah,
some of us
there's
miss
a
this and it
YouTube
sounds kind of
video.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, they streamed it on YouTube, but it's like 4 minutes, and then but it's just like we'll start soon. So I don't know what happened, but yeah,
Yeah, and it was supposed to be a Zoom, so I don't know, but I've got the feelers out. Just wanted to highlight that. Hopefully
cool.
more to follow. Mike, we are at the end of the road, top of the hour. What I don't want to do is take a bunch of time explaining what we have coming up. So if everybody could just stay tuned for a minute or two, or not even a minute or two, I think it's literally 20 seconds. You'll see what's coming up this week and next on the Dawn of Drones and the full crew. Mike, over to you to close us out.
All right, just another reminder to subscribe, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank the audience. Want to say thank you to Chris Wedgeworth, Richard V, and Jason Sansushi. I know you gave us some stuff in the chat, but we were really talkative today. But next time we'll get back to you. I want to thank our guests, Roee Kashi and Danielle McLean. Thank you so much for joining us today and providing awesome articles and topics for us to talk about. That's it for this week. We're out here.